One's getting unmiked and mic'd up back there. This panel will speak directly to my heart as well. Coming on stage for this one is my colleagues, my coworkers, and women in the industry that I've been able to be in and around for the last 10 seasons, 10 years. I'm excited to have them kick off the panel that is called Lights, Camera, Drive, Women Shaping the Motorsports Narrative, presented by Fox Sports. Is this one? Okay, we're back. Our host for this panel is none other than Jamie Little. Jamie is the on-air talent, pit reporter, play-by-play announcer for Fox Sports on the NASCAR coverage and has been with Fox since January 2015, nearly 11 years. In 2021, she began serving as the lead play-by-play announcer for the Fox Sports coverage of the ARCA series. She was the first woman to be the lead television play-by-play announcer for a national motorsports series. She was a reporter for ESPN ABC from 2002 to 2014, covering the X Games, IndyCar, NASCAR, the Great Outdoor Games, and prior to that, she covered Daytona Supercross. She's covered 12 Indianapolis 500s, 11 Daytona 500s, and 8 Brickyard 400s, and has hosted a variety of non-racing sporting events and was the first female pit reporter for the TV broadcast of the 2004 Indy 500. Joining Jamie on stage is one of my lovely coworkers and someone that we share. We graduated high school together in 2005, so we affectionately refer to each other as 05. Courtney is an NHRA on-air talent and media personality. She's a respected motorsports broadcaster with a lifelong connection to the National Hot Rod Association, including being a former junior dragster herself and sportsman racer. She has since built a successful career behind the microphone as a member of the broadcast team covering the NHRA and other motorsports events. She's also the co-host of the Shake and Bake Show, where she brings humor, insight, and insider perspective to racing fans across the country. She has served as the brand manager for her sister, six-time champion Erica Enders, and handling content creation, social media, sponsor relations, and more. She's a certified personal trainer from the National Academy of Sports Medicine. 05? Yeah. Shea, I have a problem with this first sentence in your bio. It says former professional driver. I had you in a race this year.
I did.
Shea Holbrook is the team owner of BSI Racing and in the first to finish Docuseries. She's a history-making former professional driver turned championship-winning team owner of BSI Racing, where they compete in the Mazda MX-5 Cup and the VP Challenge in IMSA and Toyota's GR Cup in the GT4 America and SRO. She became the first woman to win a touring car race at the Grand Prix of Long Beach and is a 7-time Pirelli World Challenge winner and one of only 2 Americans to compete in the inaugural W Series in 2019. She has earned a Guinness World Record for the paced bicycle land speed record and was featured in the Prime Video docuseries First to Finish and a Mother of 2. Shea Holbrook. We got some championships this year.
We're not retired forever.
Exactly. It is also my pleasure to bring to the stage Pam Miller, the coordinating producer for Fox NASCAR and IndyCar. She's an 8-time Emmy award-winning producer of motorsports and action sports programming. Currently, Pam is the coordinating and lead producer for Fox IndyCar, which includes her role as the lead producer of the Indianapolis 500. Through her career, she's produced a wide range of live auto racing programming, including Fox NASCAR races, X Games, and CBS's Sports' SRX series. Her docuseries, including about Shirley Muldowney, Betty Skelton, Boundless, and Undaunted, the Paula Murphy story, have won prestigious Gracie Awards and featured at numerous film festivals. Pam was awarded the 2025 Game Changer Award for her scope of work and a history of mentoring. Pam Miller.
Thank you, Amanda. Good morning, everybody. How are you? Good to see you all. I live here in Indy, so I apologize for our weather, but wait 5 minutes, we'll probably have snow when it's all over with. But ladies, great to see you. We've been talking about this, getting to know each other a little bit for this panel today, and so happy to be back. And thank you, Lynn and Cindy, for inviting me. Every year I come here, I'm just amazed more and more what you guys have done and what you created for women trying to make a career in motorsports. So that's why we're all here. I guess you would consider us ladies who've made it in motorsports, and we're trying to inspire the next generation and telling our stories of how we got here. So let's kind of start with that. Courtney, I'll start with you and just kind of how you got to this point. What inspired you to get involved in motorsports?
I think that the underlying thing that inspired me was family. My dad raced when we were kids and went to the local place in Houston, Raceway Park, RIP. And my sister drove, obviously, when junior dragsters were invented. We joke that we were part of the invention of it, which just shows, Amanda, our 05-ness. And there you go. But, it was just something that we did as a family. And when my sister ended up going professional and started being so successful, I knew that there needed to be a space for me to figure out if I wanted to hang around and be a part of the story. And it's been a long journey. I've done everything from selling fire suits to now being on TV with my favorite sport in the world. So it's just keeping close to my family and being able to do that with them.
I love that. And Shea, you've done it all now, a team owner after being a racer. You said you're never retired, but you also are a mom. So how did you get to this point?
I mean, my story is pretty unconventional. I'm a first-generation racer, and I had no previous knowledge or experience in motorsport, period. I actually did, when I was 16 years of age, I did a NASCAR experience, the Richard Petty experience at Daytona. And that one experience as a passenger really ignited this fire in me. But I grew up in unconventional sport. So I was a professionally ranked competitive water skier between the ages of 14 to 16. And I traded in a pair of skis for a set of wheels. And my family came from, very small beginnings. My dad was in the military. My mom was a military mom. Thank God I was an only child. If I had a sibling, I would not be here today. But I just had to bootstrap from the very beginning. And I think the passion that I had from the very beginning was just this. We were talking on the previous panel about like wanting to learn and having the mental fortitude to say, I'm going to do this no matter what it takes. And I really quickly adopted this mindset of like being a maverick and understanding like what it takes to be a maverick. And that is like being unconventional, thinking outside the box, doing whatever it takes in a world where you have to have a lot of resources and be resourceful. If you don't have those, you better figure out a way. And when there's a way, there's a will. And that's kind of where like my motto that my family and I came up with is fear is a state of mind, yet will is an action taken. And that willpower that I had at an early age, maybe it was ingrained in me from the very beginning because of my militaristic dad's background and kind of sink or swim kid. He was a rescue swimmer in the Navy, and I just swam. I swam in life, and at the end of the day, still today, I feel like I'm a racer first and foremost, and that's what spearheaded why I am on this panel today. Yes, I'm sort of kind of retired, basically retired, but I think it's just. At the end of the day, it's like this whole, you have to have a lot of heart. And I heard that in the last panel. You have to have a lot of heart at what you're doing. And you also have to be willing to change. And I changed in my career, through a young woman in motorsports into now a mom in motorsports and a team owner in motorsports. And, being in this room alone inspires me.
Another saying that I really like is, it's good to get uncomfortable. It makes you grow. And I've been through those, we all have, where you take that next step and it's like, do I really need to take the next step? Do I really need to put myself out there? But it's so rewarding. But not many people are okay with getting uncomfortable. And I think that that is the pillar of growth. And Pam Miller, you have done it all. I mean, if there's a motorsport, if it has wheels, she has covered it in some way, form, or fashion. Formula One, way back in the day, we did X Games together. We have worked together for so many years, and it's such an honor and a privilege because she is the woman leading us in so many ways. Pam, so tell us your story and how you got here.
Well, speaking of uncomfortable, It was never part of the plan for me, in my mind, ever to be part of motorsports. I mean, I grew up in Connecticut around Red Sox-Yankees rivalries, love sports, but didn't quite know. I knew I wanted to be involved in sports, but didn't quite know what I was thinking in my head, what the job was, which was actually producing. I was making, friends and family be in talent shows as a kid and writing scripts, but I had no idea what any of that meant, right? So when I originally went to school, I got involved right away with, had an actual TV truck at our college, which was rare at the time, and produced football games and hockey games and all these stick and ball sports. Went right to New York right after graduation on a startup show that was on a network in New York, covering the NFL. The first job I had, I showed up at New York Giants training camp. Knew nobody. It's crazy. So talk about crazy, challenges. But ended up going to ESPN about a year and a half, 2 years later, and was covering NFL, NHL. Decided to take a vacation, the first vacation I probably had in my entire, adult life. Came back and the NHL was gone. First time I had experienced a property being transferred to another network. Ironically, to the network I was formerly at. And a man named Terry Lingner, who was my boss, brought me in the office and said, I really think your storytelling and your passion for sports is great, but at ESPN right now, there is not a role for a woman to lead one of those sports in a TV truck. It's not going to happen. But there's one lane in this company that might offer you an opportunity if you have an open mind. And I said, okay. And he said, would you like to go to Watkins Glen with a guy named Benny Parsons and see NASCAR? And I said, sure. I don't know where the oil goes in my own car. I barely can pump my own gas, but I'll go. And so I went, and Benny and I became quite a team. He was a fantastic mentor. I saw all the storytelling potential that I had been doing in other sports. And within a year and a half, I was producing Formula One, the first woman producer Formula One around the world with Bob Varsha and David Hobbs. So to your point, taking a chance.
Taking a chance. I wish I could show these photos. I don't know really how this works, if we could get them up here, but there's a picture here. Pam, you mentioned where you started, and then this is the picture. We're all in the room in the production meeting. This year, here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Fox covered their first Indianapolis 500. Pam was the producer. I got to come back full circle after 10 years away, and just what a moment it was. The personalities that were all brought together for the first time. Our boss, Eric Shanks, is from Indiana, went to IU. This was a lifelong dream of his, and they knocked it out of the park. But that's a side story. So let's get back to storytelling. Pam, you mentioned storytelling, and that's kind of what we're talking about. How storytelling shapes the public's perception of women and the roles that we carry in motorsports.
We have so much technology, I guess, when we cover stories now. The engineering side, the gaming side, all these things. But the one thing we can never lose is telling the human side. And that's the ups and downs, the struggles, but also giving everybody credit where credit is due and following those story arcs. And, it's not about plucking the first woman or the first whatever. It's really showing everybody on an equal plane and building their story. Because their story, no matter where you came from, is interesting, right? So you want to be able to tell those stories. And I think it's making people see what someone is doing and make it normal what they're doing, not an anomaly. Like, it's an opportunity to basically show people that this is happening without putting it in their face. They're humanizing everybody in pit road, on a pit box, turning a wrench behind a wheel. Every part of it is part of the story arc. And if you can get the fans to buy in to those stories, you can throw all the technology at them you want. It's the human part of it. And when you make it normal across the board and it's just logical, then it becomes just part of the story. And the impact can be real because those are the heroes we're building.
Shea, as a driver, I'm curious when you talk about normalizing women in racing, but my question is it normal yet? NHRA is totally different than NASCAR when it comes to women behind the wheel and women in all different variations, all different jobs. But for you as a driver, how did you promote that? Well, I am a woman. I am one of the only ones out here, but at the same time, I want you guys to accept it as normal, and I'm a driver, so back me.
Well, I'll never forget this. Speaking of storytelling elements, when I won the Long Beach Grand Prix, one of the first people, actually, I think he was the first, was John Doonan to congratulate me. When I was asked to be a part of this wild Guinness World Record thing that I did, which was the pace bicycle land speed record. The storytelling element behind that, 2 women, this amazing bicyclist who had the dream to be the fastest woman on a bicycle. She went 184 miles an hour on a normal pedal bike. She drafted a dragster that we brought back from the dead, by the way. I was terrified to drive it at the Bonneville Salt Flats. I was like, everybody's very curious. Everybody's nervous about her safety, but what about my safety? Anybody want to talk about my safety here? Not even sure where this thing came from. But the storytelling element, I think from the very beginning became, I lived in an era where in the IMSA paddocks, or the Pirelli World Challenge paddocks, now called SRO, Danica Patrick was the female race car driver. And I'll never forget a previous race car driver, Randy Popes, and we were in St. Petersburg, Florida for the Grand Prix. It was my second professional race there. And I'm with Randy, and we're waving to the crowd, and people are screaming, Danica! 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 And I'm like, I'm not Danica. And Randy looks at me and he says, girl, just go with it. I'll never forget, little girls coming up to me. I had much darker hair then. This is not natural, believe it or not. I will never forget little girls coming up to me when I was racing in the Pirelli World Challenge in the touring car division, and we were racing alongside IndyCar, and they would come up and they'd think I was Danica Patrick, and these parents would be like, please just go with it and sign the autograph, and I would do that. And so I mention these short little clippets of my life to then just tell you, it's about the journey, and it's about what you make out of the journey. And sometimes the storytelling element, when it goes to the big screen, right, first to the finish, an amazing docuseries with Mazda and the Mazda MX-5 Cup, a platform that I've been so gracious to be a part, I've been so grateful to be a part of. But a lot of times, it's what's happening right now in the room. It's what's happening in the connection that you make with each individual person, and allowing somebody to understand what your story and platform might be, but also then giving back to somebody and understanding what they need for their personal story and their personal journey. And I just think the human interest side of it for me, I realized really early on, because I had to be resourceful when I had no resources. I had to give more to others and take less for myself. And if I had that mindset and I did as much as I could for others, that maybe at some point that would come back and return to me. And, to this day, I still think like I have to work 10 times harder than you and you and you and everybody. I don't care who you are. I got to work 10 times harder than everyone to position myself for the opportunity. But you know what? It's not necessarily that you're working harder and outworking and you're better than everyone else, male or female. Sometimes it's about, if I have the opportunity to provide a platform or a voice or a channel for someone else to tell their story alongside inherently telling my own, that sometimes is good enough.
Yeah, I really like that. That was really well said. It's funny you said that you feel like you have to work harder or just be different. And I feel like as a woman in motorsports broadcasting, especially when you do something new or for the first time, I feel like a woman puts that headset on, we're looked at through a magnifying glass. Whereas if I have a colleague that's a male that's never done it before, he can sit up next to me. Nobody says anything because they just assume that's a guy, he knows racing, he understands it. And I felt like that every step of my career, but I use that as fuel, obviously. I'm a little hard-headed, but I take whatever with a grain of salt. But I feel like that is still true. It's getting better. NHRA, again, much better in that regard. I think sidelines for any major league sport has gotten so much more accepting of women. We're still working on the play-by-play stuff. That is still hard for a lot of people to swallow, but we're getting there. We're fighting the good fight. So Courtney, back to you with that, working with your sister, and then you at some point made the change and you got the mic and you're doing TV. So when did you make that change, and what have you learned from this side of the business of motorsports?
I always said that I had the best view in the house because not only just with my sister's career, but all the teams that I've worked with and just even getting to be, a spectator to the greatness that is drag racing. My view, I called it like the shotgun. I was the scrub on the shotgun side of my best friend's ride. But the things that I knew, thank you, a couple more O5ers, yeah. Amanda really set the pace. But the things that I saw and experienced and the vulnerabilities of not only the people, but the business and the things that they went through, it was something unique to me that I felt like the rest of the world didn't get to see. And they may get to judge and say, well, I saw her in this interview, or she went from the ropes too soon and didn't get me to sign this, and just all of the things. And so naturally, even before I was, getting paid to do anything out here, I started to tell these stories. And I had a column in Drag Illustrated, which is a very popular publication in drag racing, where I would give light to not just women, but people that weren't in the spotlight, but made the spotlight happen, and those kind of things. I did a story on the guy who runs the jib camera, actually, his cousin right there. But just women in media, women who were writing these stories, who maybe you just read their names and didn't know their faces. But those of us that aren't in that spotlight had a different opportunity. And so it just kind of clicked one day. I didn't really think I was going to get a job doing this. I honestly didn't think that anybody could, get over the past things that I've done, or being on my sister's side and not being able to be unbiased when I'm telling the stories of drag racing. And that's one of the main things that I really, really set out to prove wrong this year in calling. I was up in the booth with NHRA or even at Top End and having to interview people that we've had, this is a real panel here, serious altercations with, and so it became one of those things where I had to change that view set. But I love what you said about, working harder and fighting. And so me not knowing that this was going to be something in my career, we're all put in these places where all of a sudden it's like everything makes sense, and every little bit of the journey led to where we are now to enable me to be able to tell these stories. And I'm not clinically trained. I don't know really the right things to ask at the Top End, and I watch you and I watch Amanda and all these things, but something that I recognized, and a lot of people in this room, Elin and Abby and my sister, helped me recognize, was that my viewpoint enabled me to tell these stories in a different manner. And that's kind of where it all clicked. And it honestly didn't click until a couple of years ago. Got a job at Flow Racing and doing their live streaming, and it just fell into my lap. Literally, I've been begging Evan Jonat for years to give me a chance, and finally did. And so now I get to be the one to tell these stories of the things that I love so much.
It's a fun place to be.
It is. I think the best view in the house, in my opinion.
Right, absolutely. I never want to leave pit road. People always ask, would you permanently go to the booth and give up pits? And ideally, no, because that's where your relationships are. And when you can be the one delivering those stories right from the horse's mouth, nobody else is getting that opportunity. There's nothing like it. So it's definitely a great place to be. So welcome to the TV Club. And Pam, we'll go back to you, and we talk about normalizing or whatever that means to people, but how do we get to a place where there are more women? NHRA has done a heck of a job. NASCAR is getting there at different levels. We've had race engineers for the big races on Sundays. We haven't had that crew chief on Sundays quite yet. I think that that's probably maybe a year or two away. Variations of women in different roles, but still not where I would expect us to be. So how do we get there? How do we get somewhere that NHRA is? And I know it has a lot to do with what we're doing on TV.
Yeah, it's storytelling for sure, and mentoring too. I think that behind the scenes mentoring is really important. Just even behind the scenes, I think as more women are helping tell the stories, some of those stories will come out. But I think bringing along the next generation, educate. I had one race car driver tell me, we're probably still at least a generation and a half away from seeing some really impactful women on a pit box or behind a wheel, especially in NASCAR. I don't know that that's true or not, but I think the more that there's broader thinking and more mentoring from the male, I think someone yesterday said, men are our best allies. And I think getting them educated to bring along some women engineers. I walked in with a delightful woman engineer this morning who's got a great opportunity. And I think the more that people welcome those personalities and all the different jobs that, from sweeping the floor in the shop, right? How many times, Jamie, have we heard sweeping the floor in the shop? I ended up being the crew chief, and we know a lot of people who did that. And I think that has to happen. And I think that as you learn in television, it works too. You know, you learn every job, you come up through the ranks. But I do think if we can get more mentors out there who are open-minded on all areas, and then we can bring along the next generation and change how a male driver races a female driver, how a crew chief treats the women in the organization, that sort of thing.
Men are our best ally is a good point, because let's face it, they are most of them are making those decisions. And a story I always tell people, Danica Patrick would not be Danica Patrick if it wasn't for Bobby Rahal. He believed in her, saw what she was doing in Europe, and gave her a shot at the top level of IndyCar, and there she was leading laps in her first Indy 500. So all the credit to him, and that's the biggest step, I feel like. It's just like producers giving women a chance in the booth or on pit road. They have to believe in you, but if they're not going to, it's just going to be the next person will get the job. So I always give full credit to Bobby Rahal for taking that chance, because it is a chance, because you don't always have those sponsors knocking down the doors to want to sponsor a woman who's never raced at that level before and she's not proven yet. So we need more of those. So Shea, I'll ask you basically the same question. Just how do we, I guess it's interesting for you to go from driving to a team owner and how you see the perception of women, and what do you do to better it?
Yeah, let's just beat the boys. That's pretty easy, right? Let's just beat them. That's one way to get to the top. But I think there's a couple ways, right? I think, to your point, men are our allies. I have to say, outside of Lynn St. James, I think every other key mentor and person that has moved me up in my career has been a male counterpart. And I am so incredibly grateful to the men that have helped me in my career. Let me just bring you down memory lane. So some of my sponsors in the past, Bubba Burger. Anybody remember me when I was in Bubba Burger livery? How about Dick-Eyed Honda? Okay, I had some pretty wild, very what seemed macho or male-driven, sponsors. And the men behind those platforms and programs and companies really supported and saw my vision and wanted to be on the ride, along the ride with me, but also then provide other opportunities throughout the way. Now, I think no matter what, we need men to be our allies. But more importantly, with the inception of WIMNA, I think this is the first time in history that I have seen in the last 5 years that women are truly supporting women. We like to say that from time to time because it's catchy and you want to say the right thing. But let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, that's not always the case, okay? And I want to say, go even back towards when my aha moment when I was 16, 17 is when I was accepted to go to Lynn St. James Women in the Winner's Circle. And I'll never forget, I basically understood the people in the room, the educators in the room, these are the best. These men and women are the best. And if I don't take what they're saying as the Bible, then I'm the wrong one in the room. I'm not doing my job. They're giving me tools and resources. I have to move forward and do something with my life. And if you've met Lynn St. James, we're all slightly scared of her, right? She peels back layers of an onion on each individual female driver, engineer, anybody in the industry, any woman in the industry, and she can quickly just dissect you, spit some knowledge, even if it hurts your feelings. But what I realized is every time she said something that really kind of came off or was delivered in a way where it might actually, I could internally take that where it would hurt my feelings, I use that as fuel. I use that as my internal power to say, this is somebody that is actually wanting to mentor me. I need to be a great mentee. And I think that's also another big key point in normalizing this is we have to be really good mentees in order to get great mentors. And that is, I think, a big defining factor as to why I've been able to normalize this in my world. And then when I transitioned from racing to team ownership, I really felt as though I had great I actually really felt like I had a lot of tools in my toolbox. I felt like I had worked in various parts of the industry. Basically, the only thing that I haven't done is probably broadcasting and then actually being a mechanic, but everything else I've kind of touched in some way, shape, or form. And just those experiences and what I was able to gather over the last almost 20 years really gave me this comprehensive approach to becoming a team owner and leading. And I think being a leader, first and foremost, in this industry, no matter what your position is so critical, because this is not for the faint-hearted, as John Doonan said. This is you have to have a lot of grit, a lot of tenacity, as Jonathan Applegate said. And you have to have, as Caitlin said at TRD as well, like you have to have a lot of empathy and compassion, and you want to really care about what you're doing and what others are doing in order to make this a positive imprint on other people's lives, but also internally for you. And I think that's how we continue to normalize things. That's how I've normalized it in my own head. And at our business, integrity, performance, and excellence is the 3 pillars at BSI Racing. And I layer that every day at the business. I just sent a text message to everybody before I came this morning as a reminder, let's have a great day, and here's one of the key values that we work on in this business, because and I'm the only female at my business. Collectively with contractors, we have about 25. I'm the only female, and that's not by choice. That's just with what we're dealing with right now. And I'm also one of the youngest. I actually think I am the youngest. I'm the only woman, and I'm the youngest, and I'm leading one of the best touring car-esques and now into GT4 professional race teams in the market. And I'm really proud to do that. And I have to remind myself sometimes that I am a 35-year-old young woman and a mother of 2 and a wife. I need to sometimes remind that to myself so that I know the room and who I'm speaking to, because if I'm speaking to one of my contractors who's 62 years old, been there, done that, and has done a hell of a lot more in life than I have of all kinds, I have to conceptualize and remind myself, who's my audience? Who am I talking to? How do I motivate them? How do I gain the respect? How do I keep my credibility or gain more credibility? But by normalizing, I can lead this enterprise. I can be a great leader. I can be a great boss. And I think that for me has been what has enabled me to have the most success that I've had thus far. I'm still going like this, babies. I'm still going like this.
Love it. A lot of life to live still. Courtney, I'm curious, just from the female perspective of the different roles and being with your sister, that outside expectation that comes with being a woman, whether it's looks, it's results, it's knowledge, it's all of those things. Do you want to be a mom? Are you ever going to be a mom? All of those things that we get that men don't. How have you handled kind of that outside expectation?
Still handling, to be honest. We also were raised in a military family. My dad is an Air Force vet, and he, made sure that we didn't have any sort of victim mentality, no matter what the world gave us, right?
Hallelujah.
Yes, you are a woman. That will hold you back 0, if anything. I think that we were overtaught, and maybe to a delusional level, that it was going to make things easier. It sure didn't. But having that mindset growing up, coming into this world, I almost to a fault just came into it thinking that nobody would think any different. I was always one of the youngest ones in the room, one of the only females in the room, and I never saw it in that way. And there was a couple of gut checks and reality checks in certain big boy tables that I was sitting at that I wasn't seeing the same me that they were seeing. But I think that helped. And as I've gotten older, I'm almost 40 years old now, and I still am almost backtracking, feeling like that, 18, 19-year-old little girl in the room. And that's changed. But, you touch on appearances, and you touch on, we're in a rough sport. I've never roamed the pits in NASCAR or wherever you guys are, but it is rough in the drag racing pits. And if you aren't a little bit rough, you almost aren't heard. And so there's specifics of, when to be a lady and when not to be a lady, and having to learn those, because you do want to create that poise and make sponsors and partners and employers and families and team members proud. But at the same time, if somebody's given you that same thing or words or whatever the attitude is they're giving, I've been very known to give that right back. And that's, bit me in the butt a couple of times, but it's also given me opportunities that I think that I wouldn't have. And you talk about appearance today. I walked in this room, I'm like, everybody's in dresses. I'm in jeans and Jordans. Like, I still don't understand. So, but that I'm Sporty Spice, and that's who we are, and we are in an industry to be able to be yourself. And I think that that's one of the most important things of balancing that line of we are women and we have to be this certain way. But then again, I'm up in the booth with guys like Jason Galvin and Joe Costello, and I have to step on their toes if I want to be heard. So I think that maybe I'm the extreme of that situation, but, I am a woman, hear me roar, and they definitely do.
Yeah, and you definitely hear the criticism I do all the time of the young females coming up, and they're tomboys, they're jocks, they're athletes. They don't want to wear the makeup. They don't want to get glammed up. I remember Sarah Fisher in IndyCar. She didn't want to do all that stuff, but her sponsors put the pressure on her. We want to see you more feminine, so she had to do all the hair and makeup on her, hero cards and all of that. And I just know that that's another level, and I feel like for a lot of sponsors, that is an important one.
Yeah, you really want me to talk about this? So if you would have asked 16-year-old Shea the same question, I'd give you a totally different answer. If you would have asked 25-year-old Shea the same answer, I would have given you a different answer. So 35, I have 2 kids. I've pushed them out of my body. I've driven some race cars. I own a team. I have swam. I have sank. I have done enough to have an opinion now. I recently have had this realization, and I made a joke, and I don't mean to take it for what you're going to take this for. We are living in a world and in a society where we are driven on technology, and we are getting access to information. We are getting access to anything and everything that you want to see whenever you want to see it. And at the end of the day, you become the person that you're going to probably be for the rest of your life around the age, I think, of probably 30 or so. Would you agree or disagree? Would you kind of agree? Kind of like when you're 30 is kind of when you say, okay, this is who I'm going to be for basically the rest of my life.
Attitude-wise, not so much. Attitudes change as you grow.
Yeah. And so, does sex sell? Does it? That's a question. Does sex sell? Yes. Okay. So I think we have to individually think about how we want to sell sex, right? How I put clothes on today, how I want to sell myself as a professional young woman in the industry, how I want to be perceived. And that's your personal decision. And here's where I decided I'm going to be on one side of the fence or the other. You cannot be on top of the fence. Make the decision as soon as you can and live with that decision. And be strong about that. Now, more recently, I've decided, I made this, it's a terrible joke, okay? I grew up in the Catholic faith, and I used to go to church on Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. And for a long time, I said, you know what? I got enough credit with God that I'm good. It's been years, man. It's been years. And I recently kind of decided after having children, I have almost 4, he's going to be his 4th birthday on Sunday, and almost 6-year-old. And I think becoming a mom then made me change my opinion on how I want to lead by example. And my kids were the biggest epiphany for me to go, wait a minute, everything that Lynn and Cindy and my parents and, John Doonan and Jonathan Applegate and Trent at Toyota and all these people have been telling me, I'm like, wait, they're right. And I have been essentially living this for the last, almost 20 years in motorsports, but now I really have to have a defining factor about me. I'm on a freaking national television show on Prime Video that you can still go watch, by the way. And I have to really be comfortable in my own skin. And I think it's just really important that we make conscious decisions to live every day and lead by the example that we want to as women, whatever that might be for you. And what you do behind closed doors, you might think that people don't know. But at the end of the day, without you having to say or show anything, your actions will speak louder than words. And the action that you take every day when you all wake up and you do whatever it is that we're doing in life, that is incredibly and powerful to the people that are looking up to you that you don't even know are looking up to you. And it is shocking to me today still that I have so many family members, my own family members, young women, people that are older than myself and saying, you're an inspiration. And I'm going, what? I'm just trying to survive every day, y'all. I mean, I'm really just trying to work hard, do my thing, and survive, stay in my lane, and try to help others when I can. And that's just the piece that I think that we need. When it comes around to this whole persona and who do we need to be and what characters are television shows making us out to be, at the end of the day, you control a lot of those actions. Control your actions.
Be your authentic self. And it's harder now than ever, right, with social media. And you're a young girl, and you look at this person, and you're trying to be who they are, and you're trying to recreate what they have on social media. You're just chasing that ball. It's such good advice to just learn who you are, who your authentic self is, and that's what you portray to the world. It's a lot easier to live like that. Pam, we're running out of time here, but I want to get last words from you. Just some advice to maybe some ladies and young men in the audience about how to get involved in motorsports. If this is your passion and you want to be here, what is the advice you have?
First thing is you're in the room, so that's a good thing because connectivity is everything, who you know. I said it earlier, sweeping the floor. I mean, do any job. Like the more in television, the more levels you go and the more experiences you have make you more valuable and versatile. Do a lot of listening, observe, and enjoy the journey, because every stop you make, every experience you have is going to add up in the end. So don't lose sight of the fact that it's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight, and stay persistent and enjoy it, because it is fulfilling when you get there.
It is so fulfilling and so rewarding. And I always tell people, because they want to chase, I want to be in TV, I want to, be a star. If that's what you're in it for, you're never going to last. If you're in it because you love it and this is truly what you want to do, you worry about everything else later. The money, the stardom, the autographs, that all comes later, but just go after something that you're passionate about. If it's tinkering on cars, if it's calling a strategy, if you're a numbers person, that's what you want to go after. And it's like, I know it's cliche, but it's like you're not working a day in your life when you're in motorsports, or you're truly where you're meant to be.
I was going to say, you should never even think about money. Just do it because you love it, because then that comes later.
Yeah.
It will reward you in the end. But you should never feel like you're working a day in your life.
Yeah.
If you really love it.
Courtney, advice?
I am a true testament to that. As I said in the first question in my story, is I just wanted to be around. Wanted to be around it. I wanted to be around the people. I wanted to be on my sister's journey. And you talk about absorbing the moments and all of the things. I'm sitting on a panel sitting next to you ladies and Jamie Little, and I took that in for a second, because this wasn't on the master plan for me, and it was just following that passion of it. I had all these normal jobs just to be able to make it happen, taking red eyes home from the racetrack to go back to normal work and worrying about the money and all the things. And if you follow any kind of drag racing, or myself or my sister, I rode every coattail to get up here, and you know what? The coattails were a nice ride, so I say do what you got to do.
Whatever it takes. Shea, we'll end with you.
I think maybe if you don't already, come up with a few key words or adjectives that describe who you are or what your company or your entity is. And for us at BSI Racing, we have a hashtag called BSI Built, and that's truly our development program. And so whether that is a driver, whether that is an engineer, whatever the role might be, your development program to get to where you want to end. And you might get there, you might have to veer, but for us, it's integrity, performance, and excellence. Figure out what that is for you, and daily reminders of that, and that's how you're going to push through and achieve, probably goals that you didn't even have set out for yourself. And the sky is truly the limit. And again, thank you so much, Jamie, for the panel, and everybody at WIMNA. This is always such a pleasure, and this is always the highlight of my year, so thank you.
Yes, and thank you to all of you in the audience who are supporting women in motorsports, and all of you who are here to learn more. Thank you so much. I don't know if you guys will have a break, but we'll bring Amanda back up.